Okay, hello guys. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Can you give a thumbs up? Can you hear me? Fantastic, nice one. Okay, so just a few of you to begin with. Hello Lydia, it's been a long time. A long time since I saw you. Listen, I have you muted, so you can't answer, but yeah, you can tell me in the chat, of course. But yeah, it's been a long time. And Monse and Alex, regulars now. Fantastic, nice to see you guys. Hello Victor, hello David, hello Chabi Tejedor as well. Fantastic, another regular. Wonderful. Well, listen, hopefully a few more people will be arriving a little bit later. As usual, here's one more now. In fact, Monica's here. Fantastic. So we will, well, they can sort of join in as they arrive, yeah? No worries. And Javi's here as well. Fantastic. So, well, as you guys know from your invitation to this week's webinar, our topic today is kind of an introduction. Hello, Monica. Love the background. Fantastic. And yeah, so basically today's topic is an introduction to English phonology and phonetics. Now, it's just an introduction today. Obviously, these are huge topics that we could dedicate hours and hours and hours to talking about. But I'm just, the idea today is just to give you guys a little taste. Hello, Eric, and Monse as well, fantastic. Just to give you a little taste of what we're talking about when we talk about phonetics and phonology. So, well, let's begin. One moment, let's see if I can get this technology working. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let's go to Keynote. Here we go. Fantastic. All righty. Wonderful. So here we go. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, guys, just a few technical problems here. Let's try again. Share screen, phonetics and phonology. And here we go. Okay, wonderful. Now, hopefully you can all see that. So it's a Sim Diagonal webinar, and it's an introduction to English phonetics and phonology. Hey, Eric, hello. So listen, guys, I have the chat open. I can't reply to you at the moment, but if you want to sort of ask me any questions, do it through the chat. That's absolutely fine as we move along. So yes, an introduction to English phonetics and phonology. So as usual, we're going to begin by defining what exactly we're talking about when we talk about phonetics and phonology, and actually what the difference between those two things is. They're very much related, but they are distinct. So first question for today's webinar is, what is phonetics? So the study of sounds made by a human voice in speech. So phonetics isn't in any way specific to English, it's just related to the production of sound. Now, there are actually three kinds of phonetics, and we're just going to focus more on one of those today, which is what we call articulatory phonetics, which is sort of the mechanics of how we produce sound. Now, obviously, we're doing that in the context of English, so we're looking at how we produce the sounds or the phonemes that exist within the English language. But this idea of phonetics obviously isn't specific to any language. It's how humans produce sounds. Yeah? There are other types of phonetics that we're kind of not so interested in for today. Okay, great. So this is phonetics. So then what's phonology? Well, this is the study of sounds within a particular language and the system of sounds within those particular languages, within that particular language. So phonetics obviously is, in this sense, in today's sense, is related to how we produce those sounds, the mechanics of speech, and phonology is, why do we do it like that? How do these different sounds fit in to the system of English? You know, why do we pronounce a certain vowel like this in this word and like this in another word? Phonology is going to deal with these types of questions. So essentially, yeah, phonetics, the mechanics of speech, and phonology, the system within a specific language. We could equally talk about Spanish phonology and Catalan phonology, but not today. We're going to speak about English phonology. So, in order to be able to explain these topics well, I need to kind of define a few phrases at the beginning. And we're going to use these phrases during today's webinar. So first of all, I need to make sure that you guys understand these terms. So the first, maybe you heard me using this word already. The first is the word phoneme. So what is a phoneme? It's basically the smallest unit of speech, an indivisible unit of speech. It can be divided in some cases, but it's more or less an indivisible unit of sound. Okay, so for example, if I say the word hot, that word contains 3 phonemes, yeah, 3 kind of indivisible units of sound. The first is, yeah, that's the first phoneme. I don't know how well you can pick that up on the microphone, but it's basically just a bit of breath coming out like a, okay. The second one is an oh. That's a vowel, obviously. And the last one is t. And those are the 3 phonemes that make up the word hot. Yeah, so those 3 individual sounds, oh and t, and we put them together and we form the word hot. And each one of those sounds is a phoneme. Now, importantly, phonemes are not letters. Yeah, phonemes are not letters. Yeah, that's different. Letters are related to alphabet. Sometimes the phonemic symbol will actually look similar to the letter in the Latin alphabet, but not always, because it's not the same thing. I could give you an example, the word book, and you could see the O, the 2 O's in book are not pronounced the same way as the O in hot. You've got an U instead of an O. So you can see that letters and phonemes are not the same thing. That's a really important basis. We have a phonemic alphabet, and then we have the Latin alphabet. Okay, so that's a phoneme, and more or less an indivisible unit of speech, the smallest unit of speech. So what's a consonant? Hopefully you'll be a bit more familiar with this word, a consonant. Now, we're interested in phonetics and phonology today. So today we're not interested in the Latin alphabet, so we can more or less ignore what's in brackets. A speech sound pronounced by stopping the air from flowing easily through the mouth, especially by closing the lips being labios, or touching the teeth with the tongue. Yeah. So when we make a sound like a p, for example, there's a stop, and we're stopping the flow of air, yeah, and then starting it again. So these are consonants. Now, if we're talking about the alphabet, of course, we're going to distinguish between vowels and consonants. So consonants would be things like t, d, p, k, r. These are all consonants, as opposed to vowels, which would be things like or, ah, ah, eh, e, this type of thing. This would be a vowel, yeah? So you can imagine a vowel. What makes a vowel a vowel? Well, it's the opposite of a consonant. Where a consonant stops the flow of air or restricts the flow of air, a vowel doesn't. So you don't block the sound. When you make any vowel sound, you're always making an open mouth, yeah? Ah, e, ah, u. My mouth's open in all cases. Obviously, I change the shape of it. Sometimes it's more open, sometimes it's more closed, but it's always open, yeah? Because a vowel always has air flowing outwards, and that's one of the things that makes it a vowel, yeah? So I don't block it with my teeth or my tongue or my lips. It's free to flow. Now, we can subdivide vowels into, well, for today, 2 categories. I don't want to get kind of too technical today, so we're just going to divide them into 2 categories, which are monophthongs and diphthongs. Now, maybe those words are kind of familiar to you guys on some level. Maybe diphthong is more familiar than monophthong, but of course, well, the di in diphthong and the mono in monophthong gives you a key, gives you a clue to the meaning of these words. Mono, of course, means 1, and di means 2 as a prefix. So a monophthong is a vowel sound which is really just one vowel. So the tongue Yeah, the lengua, the tongue, stays in one position. Okay, so for example, the word cat, when I say ah, the ah in cat, that's what we call a monophthong, because when you produce that sound, your tongue doesn't need to move. It just stays in one position, yeah? Now, I think everyone has the microphones muted, you should have, but feel free to try it in your living rooms. We'll see who doesn't have their microphone muted. But yeah, try it and kind of pay attention. Try to focus on the position of your tongue when you do it. And or even the eh, like in bed, that's a monophthong, because when you make the sound, your tongue remains stationary. It doesn't move, as opposed to a diphthong. Now, a diphthong is kind of like two vowels squashed together. And when we produce diphthongs, because it's actually two vowels together, we have to move the tongue when we make them. So, for example, the word ojo in English, I, that's just a diphthong, isn't it? I. And if you try to keep your mouth still, you'll realize that it's impossible. You can't do it. You need to move your tongue and change the position of your mouth to form a diphthong. So I, for example, I is a diphthong, yeah? Or for example, the A in wait, like esperar, wait. If you want to say wait, you have to move your tongue within your mouth, and you have to move your mouth, A, yeah? You can't just say, it doesn't work, yeah? A. So a diphthong requires this movement. Okay, so just to recap or to review before we move on to the phonetic alphabet, we had a phoneme, which is one indivisible unit of sound. We had consonants, which stop the airflow, l, p, k, r, s, etc. We had vowels, which we form with an open mouth and allow airflow. In fact, they are airflow. A, e, o, u. These are vowels. And then we had the two different types of vowels, which were monophthongs, which are the simple ones, just composed of one vowel sound, and diphthongs, which are composed of two vowel sounds squashed together. Okay. Good, so let's move on. I'm going to try to share something different with you now. 1 second. Wonderful, so here we go, share screen now. Cool, so hopefully you guys can see this one now. Okay, so this is a phonemic chart. Okay, a phonemic chart. So it's all the symbols that you see on this chart are what we call phonemes. So each symbol is a phoneme. One of these indivisible units of sound. Each one is a phoneme. And kind of when you look at that, it's kind of terrifying, isn't it? It's like, what language is this? Is it Greek? Is it what is this? I thought we were here to study English. What are we doing? Well, this is all these symbols are taken from the International Phonemic Alphabet. And each one represents a particular phoneme, or is a particular phoneme. Now, there's lots of different things to discuss here. But let's begin with the kind of the most simple difference, which is between the top half and the bottom half. So all the symbols in yellow are consonants. There are 24 of them. And all the symbols in grey are vowels. And the vowels are actually subdivided into monophthongs and diphthongs. Now, it's probably obvious at this point, but you'll notice that all the diphthongs actually have two symbols together. And they have two symbols together because they're composed of two sounds, two phonemes, yeah, that are squashed together. And that's what makes them diphthongs. The monophthongs, on the other hand, just have one symbol. And some of them also have these two dots. Yeah, these two dots. Now, what do these two dots mean? Yeah, what do these two dots mean? So let's have a look at these monophthongs. So the first one we've got, ignore the red boxes for now. I'm going to explain those in a moment. Just try to ignore those for the moment. So the reason why some of them have these two dots is because some of them are long and some of them are short. Now, when I say long and short, I'm referring to the duration of the sound. Yeah, how long we make this sound for. So all the ones with the two dots are long, all the ones without it are short. Yeah. So if you look at the examples, well, for example, the one in the red box, we've got sheep and ship. Now, hopefully you can hear a difference there, sheep and ship. Now, I was exaggerating that slightly, but the first one, sheep, the one on the left, oveja, sheep, is slightly longer than the one on the right of those two examples, ship. So ship, like barco, would be a short vowel, and sheep would be a longer vowel. And if you pay attention, you can also see, it's probably difficult with my beard, it's not so clear, but E, it's also like a bit of a smile when you do it. You have to kind of pull your kind of cheeks back a little bit. So instead of saying ship, it's E, sheep, and it's slightly longer. So basically it's the same sound, but just a little bit longer. Now, the reason I put some of these in red boxes were because, well, these are the ones that tend to be difficult for Spanish and Catalan speakers. Basically because maybe in your languages, you don't distinguish between these two sounds in the same way that we do in English. So just to quickly review then, if we start in the top left-hand corner, we've got sheep, then we've got ship. Then if we continue from left to right, we've got good. So you'll hear that's u. Now, obviously, the examples given, the underlined part of the word is the part that contains that phoneme. So in the word good, if we isolate the vowel, we've got u, good. Yeah? As opposed to the next one, which is shoot, like to shoot, and that's a longer one. It's an oo. So instead of an u, it's oo, and it's longer. Yeah. So good and shoot. Now, if I make a mistake and if I mix them, I get good and shut. Now, you can probably hear that that's wrong. It doesn't sound right if I say good instead of good, because they're different phonemes. One is longer than the other. Yeah, good is short because it doesn't have the colon, and shoot is longer because it has it. Okay, now if we go down, to the next row, still with vowels. So we're in the second row down, we've got the word bed. Now this one's easy for you guys, because this one would be basically the same for Spanish and Catalan speakers. It's just an no problem, yeah? So this one's the same in your language. The next one as we go to the right this is actually the only one in the whole phonetic alphabet, phonemic alphabet that has a name. It's called a schwa. A schwa is the name of this symbol. And we about this actually in a webinar. I don't know if any of you guys remember, but we spoke about this schwa. And this is kind of a bit like the neutral one in Catalan that's just pronounced So for example, I'm a teacher. So that final sound, teacher. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more depth later in the webinar, but that's the schwa. Cool. The next one is a difficult one for you guys, again, because it doesn't really exist in your languages. And this is So when I say it's bird, and it's an sound, yeah? Bird. Again, feel free, guys, if you don't feel too ridiculous, you can do these yourselves. Try to imitate the sounds as I'm making them, feel free. But this one's an I always describe it to my students as like when you eat some food and it doesn't taste very good, what sound do you make? You kind of go, that's not very nice, yeah? Bird. So something like when food tastes bad, you can go, bird, yeah? bird, third, absurd, work. Yeah, all of these words. Trabajar, work. Yeah, it has this sound in it, work. Okay, and that's a long one. You can hear it, and we know it's long because it has the colon. Great, next one, another long one. If we're moving from left to right, from birds, we've got door, door. And again, it's long, isn't it? Or. In fact, just the word or is simply that phoneme, nothing else, you know. Do you prefer coffee or tea? Or. It's simply that whole word is just one phoneme, or. You'll also notice with this one, I didn't pronounce the R. I didn't say or, r at the end. We're gonna look at that in a little bit more detail later in the webinar. Okay, so if we go back to the left, we're on the third row down now, still with the vowels, the bottom row of vowels. We've got an A. Now again, this one, no problem for Spanish people, no problem for Catalan people. You guys have an A. Yeah, no problem. The girl's name, for example, Anna, would be A. Well, at least for Catalan people, the first A would be an A. No problem, yeah, A. The next one's kind of difficult because you don't have it. This one is up, up. So it's not quite an A. It's not quite A. It's not quite U. It's something between, isn't it? Up. Up. And that's one of the most difficult ones, I think, for you guys to master, is this sound. We have it in cup, yeah, but, etc., etc. All right, so this one's an sound, and it's short, yeah, it's short. This is what you'll notice with all of these vowels, particularly vowels, is that they do change depending on the dialect. You know, American English, British English, even within British English, we have a lot of different dialects. Australian English, New Zealand, it's all going to be different. These are called allophones, when actually one phoneme has different possible pronunciations. I don't want to today, I don't want to enter into the world of allophones because it's going to be, well, far too much information. Today we'll just stay with phonemes, but just to give you a kind of anecdotal example, I'm from the north of England, and I think I've more or less lost my accent these days. But when I was a kid and I had a much stronger accent, this word, this up, I probably would have said up when I was a kid, because I had a much stronger kind of Northern English accent. Up, are we going up the road? Up. Is quite different. Now I say up. If you meet someone from London, it'll actually sound more like an a in cat. They'll say, going up the road, up. Yeah, sorry, my accents are terrible, but you get the idea. In a London accent, it's much more a. In Northern English, it's more u. So even within these phonemes, we're going to have different pronunciations. Okay, just two more for the vowels. If we move to the right again, we've got a long vowel. And the pronunciation here is ah, far. So there's no consonant at the end. There's an at the beginning, but there's no consonant at the end, and it's ah. It's a long vowel, and the pronunciation is ah. Now this, again, when I'm teaching, I tell my students, this is the sound you make when you go to the dentist. The dentist tells you to make this sound, and the dentist has a very good reason for asking you to produce this sound. The reason is when you produce this sound, your tongue moves to the back of your mouth and away from your teeth, which allows the dentist to, I don't know, go in there and do whatever she needs to do. But this is the sound, it's an R. And when you make an R sound, your tongue automatically moves to the back of your mouth. So I always call this one the dentist sound, because that's what they ask you to do at the dentist. Say ah, and you say ah, and then they look in your mouth. So far is ah, lovely long vowel. The final one to the right is a short vowel. We know it's short because it doesn't have a colon. And this one, again, is fine for you guys. You have, actually in Catalan, there are two, and I can't really, honestly, I can't distinguish between the two, like or sounds in Catalan. It's too difficult for me. In Spanish, there's just one, and it's oh. So this one's fine. When I say the coffee is on the table, on, absolutely fine, yeah? So that one shouldn't be too difficult for you guys to produce. Okay, now, I'm conscious of time, but let's take a quick look at the diphthongs. So diphthongs, as I mentioned, require movement of the tongue during the sound, and they're composed of two vowels together. So let's look at the first one. In the diphthongs, they're in dark grey in the top right of the diagram. And we've got the first one is, well, the word would be in Spanish, aquí, and in English, here. So if we isolate that, listen, ear, ear, ear. It's like two vowels together, isn't it? You can see we've got the E from the vowel section that we had in the word ship. We had the I, and then we've got the schwa from teacher. We got an I and an I and an and we put them together. Here, ear, ear. Yeah. So this is a diphthong. We take these two vowels, I and and we put them together. We squash them together, and we make ear, here. And again, you'll notice the total absence of a r sound or a r sound. Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, here, here. Look at the second one, wait. We've got an e and an I together. I, put them together, a, and we get wait, wait. So we take the two vowels, we squash them together. We'll just do one more example. If we go down to the next row on the left, tourist, we've got u. Yeah, we've got an u from good, and then we've got an from teacher, and we put them together, tour, tourist. Yeah, so a tour or a tourist, that's a diphthong. Yeah, tour, tourist, tourist. We squash them together, and it kind of makes it difficult to hear the difference between the two. But if you start with and just slowly bring them closer together, in the end, you get this a tourist, something like. And that's the idea. I could continue, but I don't think we need so many examples. This is the idea of a diphthong. Which brings us below the line to our consonants. So let me have a sip of coffee. And you'll see some words on the bottom of the screen written in purple. Fricative, voiced, voiceless, plosive, bilabial, labiodental, dental. Well, the construction of this phonemic chart is quite interesting, and it's quite logical as well, actually. They actually, it's composed of some different pairs. Let's see if I can mark this for you guys. Yeah, wonderful. Let's see if that works. So you'll see we've got some different pairs here. So first of all, we can focus on the first pair, P and B. Okay, P and B. Now these are what we call plosives. And we call them plosives. I always think of it like a little explosion of air. So there's a stop, and then there's an explosion there, like p, b. It's actually the reason if you record music, for example, or if you have a radio show or a podcast or something, you'll notice they always they have their microphones like this, and then they have like a little shield in front of the microphone. This is called a pop shield. And it's called a pop shield because pop is a very plosive sound, and it basically protects the microphone from these pops. So when you listen to the recording, you don't hear this kind of air coming out because that's a plosive sound. So P and B. Now, it's probably not that clear on the diagram, but if you look in the top right-hand corner, you'll see we've got these two phrases, voiced and unvoiced. Voiced and unvoiced. Some people say unvoiced, others say voiceless. It doesn't matter, they mean the same thing, yeah? So voiceless or unvoiced. Now, what does that mean? It's super important because these two sounds are essentially the same. Yeah. What I do with my mouth is exactly the same with a p and a b. I'm doing the same thing, p, b. The only difference is that the b in boat is voiced and the p in p is unvoiced. And what that means is your vocal cords, your cuerdas vocales, your vocal cords are vibrating. So when you make a voiced sound, it means your vocal cords are vibrating. So the simple test, if you want to know if something is voiced or unvoiced, is you take your thumb and your index finger and you place them here on your larynx. Now, it'll be very easy for the men in this webinar to locate the larynx, because in men, it's kind of like a big bump. We call it the Adam's apple in English. For women, it's a bit harder to locate. It's not as prominent, but you can still find it. And then you have to make the sound. And if you feel a vibration, it means your vocal cords are vibrating and it's a voiced consonant. So if you make a b sound, like boat, you should feel a little vibration there. And if you make a p sound, like pastry, you shouldn't feel any vibration from the p. So p, I'm getting no vibration, and then b, I'm getting a vibration because it comes from the larynx. Sometimes we call it the larynx or the voice box, the Adam's apple. It's got a few different names, but inside that you've got the vocal cords, and when they vibrate, they make voiced sounds. Now, actually, all the vowels are voiced. If not, it's impossible because you just have an open mouth. So vowels must be voiced. Consonants, some are voiced and some are unvoiced, which is why the arrangement of this chart is very clever, because we've got pairs. P and B are exactly the same in terms of the phonetics, the articulatory phonetics of how the sound is produced. They're exactly the same, except one is voiced and one isn't. We could do the same with t and d. Exactly the same. What I'm doing with my mouth is exactly the same. T, d. It's the same, yeah? Except the D in dog is voiced. D, d. There's a vibration. And t, t. There's no vibration. D and t. Now, these are also a little bit plosive. Now, the test, if something's plosive or not, is to put your hand in front of your mouth, and if you can feel air hitting your hand, it's plosive. P, t, d. So actually, when I make these sounds, I can feel air. T, d. There's probably a bit more air with the T, so that's a bit more plosive. There's a little bit less air coming out with the D, so that's a bit less plosive, but both of those are plosive. And again, the D is voiced, and the T in T is unvoiced. So again, they're arranged in these pairs. We move to the next one. Ch, the ch in cheese and the j in June, same thing. I'm doing the same thing with my mouth. Ch, j, ch. My mouth's doing the same thing. The only difference is the j in June is voiced. J, j, June, yeah? And ch in cheese isn't, yeah? So we've got voiced and unvoiced. Again, this is slightly obscured for me by your chat, but k and g, the same thing. K, g, I'm doing the same thing. But when I make a G, it's voiced. There's vibration. G, g, g. I can feel a vibration. K, no vibration. Okay, exactly the same thing is going to happen here with a f and a v. These are what we call fricatives. You'll see at the bottom here, the word fricative. And it's called a fricative because we force air out through this gap between the lips and the teeth, and we get a f or a v. A f or a v. Now, I want to focus, I could, of course, continue. Here, again, a classic, and v. Okay, so when I say the word pensar, there's no vibration. Think. Think. No vibration. But when I say the word this, as in esta silla, this chair, there's vibration. So this one's voiced. We've got unvoiced and voiced, yeah? Now, you'll see the word dental at the bottom, labiodental and bilabial. So there's a reason, guys, there's a very good reason why I've kind of put these red boxes, yeah? And here we go, B and V. So you see this red box here with the B in boat and the V in video. Hopefully you can all see that. This one's a classic for Spanish people because in your language, you don't distinguish between these two sounds. But in English, we distinguish. B in boat is what we call bilabial. Bi meaning two, labial of the lips. So you need to use your two lips to produce this sound, and you need to say buh. So you take the two lips together, buh, and you release them. It's a little bit plosive, just a little bit plosive, as we discussed before. Buh, buh. So it's plosive, I can feel the air, buh. It's bilabial because I use the two lips, and it's also a little bit voiced, buh, because I can feel a vibration here in my throat. So a lot of information just about one phoneme. V in video is not bilabial. It's what we call labiodental. You can imagine, no? Labiodental. So it comes from the bottom lip and the teeth. Yeah, we need to use the two. So I take my two front teeth, I rest them on the top of my bottom lip, and I go V. And I force some air out. It's fricative, so I force some air out and I say video, V. So it's voiced because there's vibration. It's fricative because I force some air out, V. And it's labiodental because I form it on the teeth and the bottom lip. Now, we've talked about bilabial. We've talked about labiodental, but what about just dental? There's actually two dental sounds here, which would be, they're not highlighted in red, but it would be think and this, the TH sounds. So these are formed on the teeth, yeah? The easiest way I always explain this to people here is like, imagine someone from Madrid. Someone from Madrid with a really strong, really typical kind of Madrid accent. You know, they're not going to say, cenicero, they're going to say cenicero, cenicero with a th. In fact, even when they say Madrid, they say it like Madrid, and it's like this crazy kind of TH sound, Madrid. And this is a dental sound because it's formed on the teeth. If you try to make this sound without using your teeth, you'll realize it's completely impossible. You must use your teeth in order to form this sound. So th. You have to just put the tongue a little bit outside your mouth. If you don't, you'll realize it's absolutely impossible. What I find, what a lot of learners like to do is kind of they replace this th, this think with this from this. They pronounce it with something like a D, and they'll say dis instead of this. If you can hear the difference, they'll say dis, and the correct pronunciation is this, with the tongue just outside. French speakers, for example, French speakers never say this in English. Well, don't say this. They substitute for a z, and they say this is, and the correct sound, this is. Yeah. So it kind of depends on your mother tongue, what's more comfortable to make. I really don't know much about French, but I suppose that they don't have a voiced TH. They don't have this symbol in French phonology. So for that reason, they use a Z because it's the closest kind of substitute that they can find. But if you want to speak with the correct accent, you need to put your tongue a little bit out and you need to voice it and say this, this. All righty, wonderful. Well, hopefully that's a good sort of introduction to you guys, for you guys to the phonemic chart. Now, I wanted to just continue a little bit with this one. Let me try to share my screen with you guys again. We'll go back to our slides. Wonderful. So let's go here. Well, you probably got this one if you were paying attention. Let's have a look. So I want you guys to guess the word. Okay, Great. So what's the word, guys? You can see a word written there in phonemic script. Fantastic, Javi, you got it. So this one was an easy one to begin, and the word is cat. Okay, so you'll notice a couple of things about this. First of all, you'll see that it's written between these two slashes. So this is how we write when we use these phonemic charts. We write we put each phoneme between these slashes, and that makes it clear that it's not English, it's written using a phonemic chart, yeah? And you're absolutely right. You'll see I've highlighted there the three phonemes that compose the word, k, a, and t, and the word is indeed cat. Well done, Xavi. Fantastic, so that's the word cat. All right, you ready, guys? Next one, tell me in the chat, what's the word? Very good, David. Not too difficult, this one, yeah? So again, if we have a look at the phonemic chart, I've highlighted all the phonemes. First, we got the d, like dog. We've got the I in ship. In fact, we've got that twice. We've got the f in fly. We've got a k, which I can't see actually at the moment on the phonemic chart. We've got a schwa, which is a, and we've got a l and a t. Easy one. Just a quick question, guys. Do you see, just after the first slash at the beginning, you'll see like a little, it's like an apostrophe. Does anyone know why that's there or what it means? Tell me in the chat if you know. I'm doing a little countdown in my mind. If we don't get it in 5 seconds, I'll tell you. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys, the suspense is killing me. It's to tell you where you need to put the stress on the word. So the first syllable of this word is stressed. The word is, it's not aspiration actually, no, it's where the word stress goes. So this one's, the emphasis or the stress is on the first syllable, difficult. We don't say difficult or difficult, we say difficult. So actually when you see this little mark, it tells you where the stress is on a word. So this is really useful when you're looking it up in a dictionary, and they always give you the phonemic transcription in the dictionary, but you don't know where the word stress is unless you look for this symbol, and that'll tell you where the stress is. So this is indeed the word difficult. All right, we're going to get more difficult now. You ready? Next one. What is that? Judith, hello, long time, no see, wonderful, nice to see you here, Judith. No, actually, it's not mindful, no, you're close. Aha, David, you've got it, fantastic. Meaningful is the word, yeah. Now you'll notice there's an N in this word, like a N sound, and there's also that kind of strange N that's got like a little tail at the bottom. That's actually like the NG sound in English. It's and it's nasal. In fact, all these sounds, the n, m, and sounds in English, all come from the nose. If you close your nose and try to say the word anillo in English, ring, you'll realize it's impossible. Ring, ring. It doesn't work because it's a nasal sound. It comes from your nose, yeah? If you try to say mum, like mother, mum, close your nose, bub. Sort of sounds like you've got a cold, you know, or the flu or something, and it comes out more like a B or something, bob, instead of an M, because it's a nasal sound. And if you close your nose, impossible, yeah? So we've got 3 nasal sounds in English. We've got the 3 nasal phonemes. We've got m, n, and And the third one, the is super nasal. It's impossible without using your nose. So wonderful, yeah, the word is meaningful. Oh, excuse me. Here we go. We've got all the phonemes involved in that word there, yeah? And you can see the stress is on the first syllable because we have the little mark at the front, so it's meaningful, not meaningful or meaningful, but it's meaningful with the stress on the first syllable. So meaningful. Now, this one is brutal. Let's see, I'll be impressed if anyone can get this. Now, we've only got 15 minutes, just keep that in mind. Any ideas, guys? So take a look at the phonemic chart. No, I see what you mean, Javi. It kind of looks like an O, doesn't it, for over, but no. Have a look at the phonemic chart. Use it to help you. Our, no. What's the first sound? It's not an O. It looks like an O, but it's not. It's actually an unvoiced TH, isn't it? The first sound is a. No, we're getting closer, Javier, but it's not 3. No. If it was 3, we would need an E, like sheep or ship or something like, well, actually like sheep. Okay, so we got there. No, I'm afraid not, Victor. No, Monica. What's the second sound is like in up. So we've got th is the start, th. Then we've got the r. David, we're getting closer. We're getting, oh, Monse, you're so close. Maybe, Monse, maybe you're thinking of the right word, but you didn't spell it correctly. It's possible. And Lydia, you have the same idea. You're so close. Okay, I'm going to count down 5. Yes, Javier, you got it just in time. Wonderful. So, Javier, you got it. That's correct. And the correct pronunciation is thorough. So actually, David, your idea was kind of understandable, like thorough. It's very close, isn't it? But actually, it's not an a, it's an thorough. And you can see it has 2 syllables, and the stress is on the first syllable. And the word was thorough. Yeah? So if you look up this word in the dictionary, this is the phonemic, well, these are the phonemic symbols that compose that word. So that's what you would find, the word thorough. Okay, wonderful. Here are the phonemes. So you can see we've got the we've got a schwa at the end, we've got the unvoiced th, the th. I think we got that one. Obviously, someone put the word there. I can't remember who it was, but it's not voiced. It's not thorough. It's thorough. It's unvoiced. Okay, good. So let's see. Oops, 1 second. Here's the word thorough. Yeah, these words in English that end with like, or that have O-U-G-H in them are horrible. Depends on the word. Sometimes it's pronounced uff, sometimes ow, sometimes it really depends. Remember, guys, letters are not phonemes in the English language. So we don't have too much time, but I just very quickly at the end, I wanted to just outline some of the main features of English phonology. And rhoticity is super important. Rhoticity. So what is rhoticity? Well, rhotic as an adjective is used to refer to a type of English in which the sound is pronounced in all situations. So basically, like our example before, if we look at the word teacher, it's written with an R, isn't it? The final letter of the word is an R. But when I say teacher, do you hear an R? You don't. Now, if you ask an American to say profesor, they'll probably say, and my accent's not great, but they'll say something like teacher. So you can hear for an American, and it does depend a little bit which part of the United States they're from, you'll hear a little bit of an R. Depending on the specific dialect, Americans tend to be either rhotic or semi-rhotic. And there are a few exceptions. So rhotic speakers pronounce their R's everywhere. At the beginning of a word, in the middle of a word, at the end of the word, rhotic speakers pronounce their R's. What do you think, guys? Tell me in the chat. Do you think my English, I'm from the north of England, do you think my English is rhotic or non-rhotic? Not at all. Very good. Yeah, it really isn't. Yeah. So I pronounce R's where, yes, Victor, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So I pronounce R's at the beginning of words in certain other cases, but I often don't. Now, you'll see here, I've got a map of the UK. In fact, sorry, it's not the UK. It's, excuse me, my Scottish and Welsh and Northern Irish friends. This is England. This is a map of England. And actually, we've cut off Scotland and we've cut off Wales. This is just a map of England. And you'll see, actually, I thought it was just an interesting point that actually the areas in red are actually the areas where people have rhotic accents. So this is where they pronounce the R. Now you can see that actually this rhoticity is changing. It's changing over time, which is really interesting. In the 1950s, you can see almost, well, probably in terms of surface area, about half the UK was excuse me, Chris is going to kill me when he sees this. Half of England was rhotic in the 1950s, and then later by the 1990s, you can see that actually a much smaller part of England is now rhotic. This area, this peninsula at the bottom, is called Cornwall. Also Somerset is kind of included in this red area in the 90s, and they do have rhotic accents. You know, they would say the word farmer, like granjero. They would say farmer, so they've got an R at the end. And in fact, if you go north of the wall to Scotland, they're actually super-rhotic. A Scottish accent is what we call super-rhotic. So someone with a very strong Scottish accent, again, excuse my terrible accents, might say the word better as better with a R at the end, because it's a super-rhotic accent. So even within, you know, the UK, for example, we have rhotic accents, non-rhotic accents, and people always have this idea that British accents are non-rhotic. Not necessarily. There's something called received pronunciation, which is kind of like the classic old school BBC English that you know, a lot of English courses use as their model of kind of correct pronunciation. And the BBC English, this received pronunciation, is absolutely non-rhotic. So more similar to my accent. And this is why I think people have this idea that British accents are non-rhotic, but absolutely not necessarily. Yeah, depends where you're from. The Southwest is quite rhotic, and Scotland, wow, next level, super rhotic. In the USA, it's almost all rhotic. There are a few exceptions, and again, it has changed over time. You go back a couple of 100 years, and most of the USA was non-rhotic, and they've actually become rhotic. So this is very fluid. It's changing. But yeah, definitely my accent is non-rhotic. Which brings us back to the schwa, a super important phoneme. The most common vowel sound in the English language. The most common is the schwa. So we spoke about non-rhotic accents. So look at the pronunciation of these words in non-rhotic English. Teacher doesn't end with an R, yeah? It ends with a schwa. This neutral vowel. Teacher, writer, letter. Yeah. Even these URE words like je and ch, pleasure, adventure. Yeah. You see the word adventure actually has two schwas in it. Oops. Okay. Any ideas, guys? What do you notice about the position of these schwas relative to the stressed syllables? Any thoughts? Well, we don't have too much time, so I'm going to give you this answer. Yeah, great, David. Yeah, exactly. It is never stressed. Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, super important. So it's never stressed. You see that the stressed syllable cannot contain a schwa. That's impossible. Yeah, except for New Zealand people, but that's a topic for another day. Strange accents, but basically it's impossible. So you see the last word on the list, adventure. You see the stress, it has three syllables, adventure. And actually it's got two schwas, one on the first syllable and one on the last syllable. Why? Because the stress is on the second syllable, adventure. Okay, so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about phonology, you know. Phonetics refers to how we produce a schwa, what's happening with our mouth, what's happening down here in the larynx, but phonology tells us these kind of rules. How do these phonemes fit in a language? What's the system? How do we know which one to use? This is the study of phonology. Great. So yeah, super fast. We're almost out of time. Then how is the following possible? The word can. It's a one-syllable word. Yeah, it's a one-syllable word. So if it's a one-syllable word, that one syllable must be stressed, right? There's no alternative. We must stress that syllable. But very often, listen to my example. Can I help you? Can I help you? Now listen to what I'm saying. Can I help you? I'm not saying can, I'm saying can. But David just correctly told us that a schwa can never be stressed. And if we have only one syllable, surely this is a stressed schwa. Well, English is a stress-timed language, which means that sometimes in English, we have whole words that we don't stress at all. So we can actually in English, and Spanish is not stress-timed, it doesn't work in this way. But actually in English, we can stress or not whole words. And because can is a modal verb, it's what we think of as a grammar word. So it's often unstressed. So when we talk about a citation form is what you see in the dictionary. If you look up the word can in the dictionary, you will not see what I put on the screen. You'll see it with the other symbol for an a, because in its citation form, when you say the word alone, it's pronounced a, can. But actually when we use it within a phrase, it's often unstressed because the whole word is unstressed. So we say, can I help you? Can I help you? And the stress is on the word help, not on the modal verb, can. But as I put on screen, that, however, is a story for another day. Just to give you kind of a little flavour of what's to come. In the future, I'd like to do a webinar actually based on this idea of stressing, changing your intonation and word stress and this kind of thing. But yeah, it's a story for another day because I have to go to my next class, which is starting in a couple of minutes. All right, guys. So I hope you found it useful. Lots of my pleasure, Monica. Lots of information today on phonemics. There's a world of resources out there on the internet, guys. Just YouTube channels, various different stuff. So get out there, investigate it. Yeah, there's a wealth of resources online. Thanks, David. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Nice one. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Judy. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Take care, and I'll see you guys next week. Check your inboxes for the topic. I haven't decided yet. And as always, feel free to let me know any topics. Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye. All the best. See you later, guys.